Have you ever wondered why, over time, interacting with certain people becomes more exhausting than pleasant? Arthur Schopenhauer, one of the most influential philosophers in history, believed that solitude is not a flaw but a virtue inherent to the sharpest minds. According to him, communication often demands superficiality. We force smiles, conform to artificial standards, and in the end, exhaust ourselves. If you feel that you prefer the tranquility of silence to the hustle of social gatherings, there is a reason for it, and it does not mean something is wrong with you. On the contrary, it may be a sign of intelligence, maturity, and self-confidence. Today, we will explore 7 philosophical and psychological reasons that explain why some people, as Schopenhauer was right, prefer solitude. First, you are highly sensitive to the surrounding world. The world is in constant motion, in a whirlwind of noise, voices, and distractions. For many, this is just the background sound of everyday life, a tangled but harmless symphony. However, for those with a more sensitive and observant mind, this excess is not just a minor detail. Arthur Schopenhauer, one of the most insightful critics of human nature, warned that the more refined the mind, the greater its ability to perceive what others ignore. The average person moves through the world, oblivious to the cacophony of empty words, the falseness in some smiles, or the emptiness of conversations that add nothing. For them, noise is just a component of the environment. But for those who are more attentive, who see beyond the surface, every sound, every gesture, and every interaction carries a weight that is hard to bear. Sensitivity to the environment is not a flaw, but a sign that your mind operates on a different level. While others seek distractions and interactions to fill their time, you seek meaning. This is why the presence of certain people or places can become overwhelming. You notice what is not said. You notice empty expressions. You feel the energy of the surroundings more intensely than you might wish, and this can be exhausting. Schopenhauer said that the crowd is a burden for those who think deeply. This happens because human communication is often based on superficiality, words exchanged without thought, social gatherings filled with conversations that revolve around the obvious. For someone craving depth, this becomes a source of frustration. It's not about disdain or arrogance, but a fundamental difference in ways of existing in the world. There are those who feed on noise and chaos, and those who find peace in the order of quiet thought. If you feel that your surroundings drain you, that interactions exhaust you, it does not mean something is wrong with you. On the contrary, it may mean that you value what truly matters and refuse to waste your peace in the chaos of mediocrity. So, do not blame yourself for craving silence, for preferring less socializing and more self-reflection. The world may try to convince you that isolation is a problem, but Schopenhauer teaches us that for some, it is the purest form of freedom. Second, you value your emotional independence. Many people cannot bear solitude. They experience an almost instinctive fear of silence, as if the absence of external voices reveals an internal emptiness they prefer not to face. They constantly seek company, approval, and validation. Like invisible marionettes, their emotions sway with the opinions of others, and without realizing it, they become prisoners of this need for acceptance. But not you. Schopenhauer considered this dependence a sign of weakness, a burden carried only by those who have not learned to live with themselves. He believed that those who desperately need others will never be truly free. To go where you want, to say what you think, and to act without constraints, true freedom lies in not needing anyone, in being happy alone. It is the realization that your inner world is not for sale, that your emotional state should not be a hostage to others' desires and whims. If you have learned to enjoy your own company, if you can find pleasure in moments of solitude, it does not mean something is wrong with you. It means you have evolved. Many people fear solitude because they confuse it with abandonment. The difference between chosen solitude and enforced loneliness is profound. You have realized that the company of others can be pleasant, but it is not necessary for your existence. This realization, however simple it may seem, is something few achieve. The modern world encourages constant connection, social media, messaging, endless interactions. Solitude has become almost taboo, as if those who choose it are making a mistake or living an incomplete life. But Schopenhauer viewed solitude as a form of clarity, a space where the wisest can reflect without interference. If you prefer your own company, it means your happiness does not depend on others. It means that, unlike most people, you have achieved a state of balance that few can reach. For you, solitude is not a punishment, but a privilege. Third, you feel the need to perform in front of others. From a young age, we are taught that social life requires performance. We pretend to be interested in conversations that bore us. We attend gatherings that exhaust us simply because it is expected. This is the unwritten rule of coexistence. Be pleasant, be accepted, be functional in the grand social theater. But the older you get, the less patience you have for this farce. You realize the superficiality of it all, that society is a theater where few are genuine. Most people wear masks, play roles, and live by scripts assigned to them, often without questioning. But what if you see something more? If you feel that every interaction requires artificial effort, it means your mind has recognized what most people refuse to admit. The world values convenience over truth. Society expects you to fit in, to be pleasant even when you're tired, to engage in small talk as if it's necessary, to avoid conflicts, to be diplomatic, to suppress feelings that might make the atmosphere uncomfortable. But what if the discomfort lies precisely in this constant performance? Over time, you realize that others' masks no longer interest you. You no longer want to pretend you want to experience life authentically. You want conversations that matter, genuine interactions that add value, that go deeper. But where superficiality reigns, the social theater repeats at every encounter. When sincerity, depth, and authenticity become rare, silence becomes an infinitely more worthy alternative. Schopenhauer, more than anyone, knew that those who see beyond social games often prefer solitude to participating in this grand farce. If you feel that communication demands too much effort, if socializing with the crowd exhausts you more than it fulfills you, perhaps you have discovered that true freedom lies in not needing to perform. Fourth, you have a strong sense of self-sufficiency. Schopenhauer said that the less a person needs others, the stronger they become, and this is a great truth. Society constantly teaches us that we need each other. From an early age, we learn that acceptance in a group is crucial, that we must seek approval, follow norms, and conform. Independence is viewed with suspicion. Anyone who prefers to walk alone, who does not submit to the need for approval, is soon labeled strange, cold, or distant. But what happens when you realize you don't need this? The vast majority of people rely on external distractions to fill an inner void. They need conversations, interactions, and constant validation of their worth. They live for the gazes of others, adjusting to avoid the silence that reveals what they are trying to escape, the need to be enough. But not you. You feel that solitude does not weaken you, it strengthens you. It is not a punishment, but a privilege. You see no need for interactions that offer nothing, for empty words that merely fill time. You have realized that when you have a rich inner world, the presence of others is a choice, not a necessity. Schopenhauer clearly saw this reality. In his view, most people cling to society not out of pleasure but out of fear of facing themselves, fear of being insignificant, fear of discovering that without others, they are nothing. But if you have experienced satisfaction in solitude, it means you have understood something most people never will. It means you don't need the world to feel complete, for you have already found everything you need within yourself. Fifth, you have had negative experiences with social interactions. Life teaches us, and sometimes it teaches us in the harshest ways. How many times have we given ourselves to friendships or relationships, believing in their sincerity, only to discover that we were used, betrayed, or discarded without the slightest remorse from the other person? Schopenhauer said that the greatest mistake a person can make is not knowing how to choose friends. A truer piece of advice could not be found. So much suffering could have been avoided if we had noticed the signs earlier, if we hadn't given second chances to those who had already shown their true nature. If you have ever been mocked, deceived, or ignored, you know how weighty these words are. There is no harsher lesson than the one disappointment teaches. Not every friendship is sincere. Many words are empty, and many promises are worthless. People come together out of self-interest, offer compliments when it suits them, but disappear at the first sign of difficulty. Gradually, you learn to be more selective. At first, you may have tried to adapt, to understand others, to justify their behavior, to forgive more than you should have. But there comes a moment when you realize you're giving more than you receive, and then solitude begins to seem more appealing than bad company. Schopenhauer understood this perfectly. He knew that life with others can be exhausting, and that most human relationships are built on convenience rather than true connection. If you have come to this understanding, if you have isolated yourself from poor company, you are not wrong. Sixth, you cannot tolerate empty conversations. Modern society glorifies superficiality. Conversations have become mere opportunities to fill silence, not a means of genuine communication. People speak because they feel they must, but they rarely say anything worthwhile to be heard. Schopenhauer considered this aimless social noise a waste. Few seek dialogues that truly matter, that go beyond the obvious, that ask questions and explore something beyond the fleeting moment. If you feel that most interactions are predictable, repetitive, and lacking substance, there is nothing wrong with you. Perhaps your mind simply craves something that few can offer. The German philosopher believed that great thinkers were doomed to solitude precisely because their favorite conversations could not be sustained by most people. While some discuss only the weather, gossip, or trivial events, there are those who strive for something deeper. They want to understand the world, explore ideas, reflect on life with an intensity that few comprehend. But such exchanges are rare. When you realize that many interactions are simply a waste of energy, have you ever found yourself bored in the middle of a conversation? Have you ever felt that your presence was pointless because nothing meaningful was being said? Have you ever wanted to escape a social gathering because you felt your time was being wasted? This is because your mind has understood that quantity does not mean quality. Schopenhauer said that those who have something valuable within them do not need the noise of the outside world to feel complete. If you feel disconnected from ordinary social interactions, perhaps it's because your mind operates on a different level, and perhaps this is why you have discovered that silence is infinitely more valuable than meaningless words. Seventh, you feel that people drain your energy. This is not a matter of misanthropy, it is a matter of preservation. There are people who demand too much. They drain your patience, your peace, your life energy. You leave a conversation more exhausted than when you entered it, not because you said too much, but because you had to bear someone else's burden. Schopenhauer understood that human communication can be exhausting, especially when it involves those who live on drama, gossip, and emotional demands. Some people don't just want your company, they want to feed on your attention, your empathy, your mental energy. They unload their frustrations without asking permission, demand a presence you never promised, and turn your problems into a burden they believe you must carry. If you feel the need to distance yourself from them, it does not mean you are insensitive or selfish. It means you have learned to value your time and peace. Society often confuses availability with kindness, saying that we must always be ready to listen, to help, to offer a shoulder, even if it completely exhausts us. Schopenhauer saw this as a trap. He knew that a wise person's energy cannot be wasted on what offers nothing in return. Time and energy are limited resources, and spending them on people who only take without giving is a luxury a wise person cannot afford. You are not wrong if you want to preserve your energy. The world is full of emotional noise and unnecessary conflicts. If you feel that you need to choose your interactions more carefully, if you feel that silence and solitude restore you more than company, that is not a weakness. It is the choice of someone who values their peace. Eighth, you need more personal space. Not everyone finds comfort in constant closeness. For some, being surrounded by people all the time is not synonymous with well-being. It is a burden that saps energy and deprives inner peace. The constant presence of others can be suffocating. There are people who need silence and moments of self-reflection to maintain balance. Solitude is not a punishment, but a necessary state for restoring strength and organizing thoughts. Schopenhauer viewed this need as a sign of self-awareness. In his opinion, those who understand their nature do not fear solitude but rather value it. A person who has learned to think deeply understands that there are moments when solitude is a refuge, a space where the mind can expand without interference, where one can reflect without distraction. However, most people do not understand this. We live in a world where solitude is associated with sadness and silence with discomfort. Those who seek time for themselves are often perceived as outsiders, as people who need to be saved from their own self-reflection. But why should always being surrounded by people be the natural state? Schopenhauer believed that those who enjoy solitude are not empty or cold. They are simply people who do not need external noise to feel complete. If you find constant communication exhausting, when solitude is most beneficial, that is a wisdom few possess. Ninth, you have realized that peace is worth more than company. Perhaps Schopenhauer's greatest teaching is this: solitude is not a punishment but a gift. From an early age, we are taught to fear loneliness. The world tells us that happiness lies in being surrounded by friends, in an active social life, in striving for connections at any cost. Society glorifies the crowd and distrusts those who choose silence. But over time, we understand the truth. The worst loneliness is not the absence of people, but being surrounded by those who do not understand you. There is nothing more exhausting than forced communication, nothing more lonely than trying to connect with someone who does not speak your emotional language, nothing more draining than maintaining relationships that offer nothing but emptiness. Schopenhauer knew this. He viewed society as a grand stage where only a few are genuine. Why force yourself to participate in this theater if there is a more worthy path? If solitude brings peace, why avoid it? Choosing your own company is not a rejection of the world. It is the choice of a world where you control your energy and peace. And then you realize that peace surpasses any company. You don't need crowds to feel complete. You don't need to fill the void with meaningless interactions. If silence gives you more than the voices around you, if being with yourself brings more happiness than socializing with others, then you have found something rare, true freedom. Schopenhauer said that the wise always walk alone. And perhaps, in the end, solitude does not make us unhappy, but rather those who have finally understood what truly matters. If these reflections resonate with you, share your thoughts in the comments. Your comment might help others. And to receive more stories and reflections like this, subscribe to the channel Wholeness in Reflection and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new content. Take care of yourself and see you soon.